Today I'm going to teach you how to make this pocket shawl. This shawl is worked just like a scarf, but we will turn the edges up to create a pocket for your hands at the bottom. I placed 2 buttons on the sides of each pocket to keep the pockets from gapping. To complete this pattern, you will need the following: a I9 5.5 millimeter hook, some darning needles, and some scissors. You will also need 4 buttons. These are the buttons that I used, but you can use any buttons that you want. You will also need 7 ounces of a solid color. I used I Love This Yarn Key Lime. You can use a different kind of yarn if you want to. You may just need to adjust how many ounces that you will need. So take that into consideration if you are going to use a different kind of yarn. You will also need 4 ounces of a multicolored yarn. I used I Love This Yarn Brights. Today I'm going to teach you how to make a swatch, and this will teach you the pattern that you need to know for this shawl. And from this swatch, you'll be able to measure your gauge at the end of this video, which will help you determine how much yarn you will need. The yarn amounts that I gave you a minute ago is the exact amount of yarn that you will need to complete this project, so your gauge needs to be accurate. The other reason that I'm not going to make the entire shawl with you today is because making the shawl requires you to chain 202 stitches on your starting chain, and that would take way too much time to show you. So instead, I'm going to teach you the swatch where we only have to chain 16 stitches. This will give us a good starting amount for you to learn the pattern. So let's get started. First, we will make a slip knot and we're going to chain 16 stitches. Count them as you chain them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, and 16. When you have 16, turn your chain over and you will see that there are bumps on the back of your chain. This is where we're going to put our stitches. We are going to yarn over and find that first bump in the back, and we are going to do a double crochet into this back bump. So you'll just yarn over and pull through the first 2 loops, and then yarn over and pull through the last 2 loops. Yarn over, we'll go into the second bump and do a double crochet stitch again. If you are not familiar with how to chain or how to do the double crochet stitch, I do have a step-by-step beginner tutorial videos on how to do these on my channel. I will put the links in the video description if you need those. Let's continue to work across the back bumps. Now, if you do have trouble with creating straight edges, there is a trick that you can do, so let me teach you it. All you have to do is find your first double crochet stitch, not your chain, but your first double crochet here, and put your stitch marker right there in that first V. So this one is 1 stitch, 2 stitch, 3 stitches, 4 stitches, and 5 stitches that we have so far. So let's keep working. This is our 6th double crochet, our 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th, 13th, 14th, 15th, and 16th. Now we are going to chain 2, then we are going to turn our work, and our chain 2 does not count as a stitch. So we're going to go right here in this first stitch, this first V right here. So this front stitch right here is your front loop on that V, and this one is your back loop, the furthest from you. We will yarn over, and we're going to go right into the back loop only. So you only have one loop on your hook with your yarn over and then your original. Let's do that again. We'll yarn over. We're going to go into the back loop only and do a double crochet stitch. And what this does is it gives us the textured ribbing effect that you see on the shawl. If you want to go ahead and find your first stitch, you can put your stitch marker in place to help you. When you come back to this edge, you'll know which stitch was your last stitch, so you'll know what to go into on the next row. This takes the guesswork out of knowing which stitch that you need to work, and it will help you to not have to rip out a bunch of rows when you get off and your work starts to slant, which is very frustrating. I am one that loves to count as I work, and I've been crocheting for over 20 years, and counting is very important. And this is why so many projects get messed up because people don't want to count. We know that we want to go into this stitch. Now we will chain 2, turn, and we're going to do the exact same thing again. Yarn over, go into the back loop of this first stitch, the very first stitch that's off your chain, and grab the back loop only, which is the loop furthest from you. Yarn over and then pull through 2 loops. Yarn over and then pull through 2 loops. Now you can take this stitch marker out, move it up to mark your next row, and you can see this is creating a really nice straight edge because you're not missing any stitches. You can also start seeing the textured ribbing effect that we are making. Now this is a great stitch. You can use it for cuffs, ribbing for hats. It's just a great technique to learn, and you can do this ribbing effect with a single crochet, half double crochet, or the treble crochet. So we will keep doing just a double crochet in the back loop only, another double crochet in the back loop only, and just keep doing this all the way across to the end. Now, when you're working this shawl, you will be working 202 stitches. So it's going to be quite a long stretch. So you can see why I'm only doing this small swatch to teach you this pattern, because it will take a long time and a lot of video cuts. And it's always great when you're making any kind of garment to first do a gauge swatch just to make sure that you'll have enough yarn. Because let's face it, nobody likes to run out of yarn playing yarn chicken to discover that they don't have enough yarn to complete their project. This gauge swatch helps ensure that you'll have enough yarn to finish your project. Chain 2, we're going to turn, yarn over, and we're going to go right into that first back loop again. After you do a few stitches, you can stop. Pull out your stitch marker and put it in the top, and this is going to help ensure that your edges stay straight as you work. Notice when you first start your edge, it can look like they're not straight. See how it's kind of pulling? But when you finish the row, it will be a straight edge. When you get to the end of the row, chain 2 and turn. We're going to yarn over and go into the back loop, do a double crochet, yarn over, do a double crochet, and don't forget to stop and move that stitch marker up into that first stitch. We will work a total of 7 double crochet rows. So far, we only have 1, 2, 3, 4, and we're on our 5th. So we have 2 more after this one. So just continue to do a double crochet and work in the back loop only. And I will meet you back here when you have 7 completed rows. When you have 7 rows of the double crochet in the back loop only, go ahead and make sure that you move up your stitch markers. I didn't do it the last couple of rows, but I will for reference for you. Now your work should look like this. Make sure that you have 7 rows. Now we are going to switch to our multicolored yarn. To add a new color, we're going to gently pull out that last part of our double crochet stitch. Now join the yarn tails and make sure that you have a pretty good amount. Now we will grab our multicolored yarn and we will finish the stitch. Now you're going to do a chain 3 and we're going to work a cross treble stitch. If you're not familiar with this stitch, I will put a tutorial link in the video description, or you can just work along with me and learn the stitch, whichever you prefer. To do this stitch, we're going to skip this first stitch where your stitch marker is, yarn over 2 times, then we will go into the second stitch. To do a treble, we're going to pull through, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, and pull through. So this is your first stitch. Now move your stitch marker and put the stitch marker in here. And then you want to tie these yarn tails together. We can go ahead and cut this purple loose. Yarn over 2 times. Now we're going to cross back and go into the first stitch here. So yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through. Yarn over 2 more times. You're going to skip this stitch and go into the second stitch. Work your treble stitch, yarn over 2 times, go into this first stitch, do your treble stitch, So we'll skip that first stitch and continue to go into the second. Then go back into that stitch that we skipped and work our treble stitch. Yarn over 2 times, skip that stitch, go into the second stitch, work our treble, yarn over twice, go back into the first stitch. Now again, if you're having trouble learning by watching me here, I do have a video where I go very slow walking you through the cross treble stitch, and I will put a link in this video if you need to go and watch that so that you'll know how to do this stitch if I'm working too fast for you here. So keep working these trebles by crisscrossing back and forth through the stitch. Again, this stitch is called the cross treble stitch. We'll skip this first one, go into the second stitch, then we'll do our treble. You do want to be very comfortable with the cross treble stitch before making your shawl. And I hope by the time that you're done working this swatch with me that you'll be very comfortable with this stitch before you attempt the middle section on your shawl. Now we're going to go back into that stitch that we skipped, do our treble, and then we're going to chain 3. And we will take out our stitch marker. We'll put it in the last stitch. So you should have your stitch and then you should have your chain 3. So this will just help you know where you are. Now turn, yarn over 2 times. Then we will skip this first stitch and go right into the second stitch just like we did before. And then this time we'll go back where our stitch marker is. We'll do the treble stitch. Now move your stitch marker in the first V, not your chain. Remember, you have your chain here and then your first stitch. And doing this will help make sure that your rows stay straight. So we'll skip this stitch and we'll go into this one. Now go back into that stitch that you skipped. And we will keep doing this sequence until we have 5 cross treble stitch rows. So continue this and I will meet you back here when you have 5 rows completed. When you've completed your 5 rows on this last stitch, we're going to add the purple back on by doing a color change. Then you can go ahead and tie these yarn tails together. I'm not going to tie mine off because I'm probably going to rip this out and use this yarn for something else later. But if you want, you can go ahead and tie these yarn tails. Now we're going to go back to working our double crochet in the back loop only. We are going to do the same amount that we did earlier, so we will do 7 rows, chain 2, turn, then we are going to work in the same stitch back here in the back loop only, and we will do a double crochet stitch. Take your stitch marker and move it up and put it in the first stitch. We are going to do a double crochet stitch across, working in the back loop only. We will chain 2, turn, go right into that first stitch in the back loop, and then do a double crochet. And if you want, you can stop, take your stitch marker and put it in that first stitch here. Continue to work in the back loop only, doing a double crochet stitch across for 6 more rows. And I will meet you back here when you are finished and show you what to do on the 7th row. On our 7th row, we will just do a regular double crochet stitch. And the reason that we're going to do this is so that it will look like the other end. I'll turn so that you can see it. We want it to look just like this row, and to get it to look like that, we need to do just a regular double crochet and not work in the back loops only anymore. Once you finish your 7th row, one thing I like to do whenever I stop working is put my stitch marker in this loop and pull it, and this will ensure that your work cannot come undone. Now we have our swatch completed, so let me show you how to check your gauge. We're going to just measure, and it's 5 inches all the way across, so yours should measure 5 across. It should measure 12.5 inches without moving or stretching it, just laying it as it is. It should be exactly 12.5 inches. So if you're doing centimeters, it would be 32 centimeters. And if you're doing centimeters across, it should be 14 centimeters. Now that you have your swatch, you'll know exactly how to work this shawl pattern. And you can see that if I lay it on top, it is exactly the length my other one is with I Love This Yarn. And that is one thing that I love this yarn is that it has good drape to it. But if you look on the back, it is 100% acrylic. So technically you could use any acrylic yarn to make this shawl. But if you choose a different type of acrylic, some of them are not as soft and it won't have the kind of drape that I Love This Yarn has. So real quick, let me walk you back through the steps on making this shawl. So you will need to chain 202 stitches on your chain. Now you will go into the second stitch from your hook. So technically you will be working 201 stitches for the length of your shawl. So you will have 7 double crochet rows with the purple where you worked in the back loop only. Then you will have 5 completed multicolored cross treble stitch rows. Then you will work 6 double crochet rows in the back loop only. The 7th row, you will do just a regular double crochet row. So this pattern, as you can see, is pretty simple and straightforward. And if you are able to complete this swatch, you will have absolutely no trouble doing this pattern. Now I'm going to show you how to make the pocket on your shawl. I will be working with a shawl that I have almost finished. The buttons are important because they tack in the pockets to keep them from gapping. And if you don't want to put a button, you could just sew the edges down, but I think the buttons make it look very pretty. Before we put the buttons on, let's take care of these loose ends. Let me show you how I weave in my ends. You will use a darning needle. You want to turn this yarn where the green is towards the green and the multicolor is towards the multicolored yarn side. And then I'll just come right down the side of the stitch, go underneath this stitch, and just work my way across, working through the multicolored part and then the green part. After you go down a few stitches, then just pull your yarn. Slowly pull those tails through. For me, this is good. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to tie a knot, and then I'm going to cut these ends. Now you could use glue, but for me, I really don't like using glue on crochet. So I'm going to just melt these ends together. I'm going to cut these ends really short here. And this is just an extra step to ensure that when this shawl is washed over time, it doesn't come undone. So I'm going to use a lighter, but if you do this, be very careful. You just want to melt them together. You do not want to catch them on fire. And then you'll just pull up and that completely disappears, and that just ensures that your work doesn't unravel over time. Now for the pockets, we want to go up 15 stitches because that is what I did on the other side. All I did was slip stitch working all the way through, and then I did a single crochet across the top, and it gives it a pretty nice finish here. Then we will slip stitch back down the other side. So the first thing that we're going to do is count 15 stitches. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. I'm going to use my multicolored yarn because that is the color that I have left. If you ended up with more of your solid color, which you shouldn't have, but if you just have some extra laying around, you could totally use your solid here. That is completely up to you. I'm going to take my hook, the same size hook that I used when crocheting this, and I'm just going to go through the first 2 stitches. Now make sure that you have both of the V's on your hook, and you will grab a hold of your yarn. So grab a hold of your working yarn tail. We're going to do a slip stitch. Pull it tight. And now we're going to work in each stitch across. Just take your time working through this here. We're going to do a slip stitch in each stitch. Make sure that you grab each one of those stitches as you work. Now you may have to separate it a little bit. That's okay, to make sure that you go through the top and then the bottom stitch, and then do your slip stitch. Then we will grab this top stitch and then grab the bottom stitch and then do another slip stitch. So just take your time and make sure that you're going underneath those stitches. And as you can see by slip stitching here, you're leaving a pretty stitch on the top, but on the back side, there isn't a full stitch. So it's a pretty nice way to close up your work. You could do a full single crochet stitch here if you wanted, but if you did a full single crochet stitch, your stitch would actually end up on the outside. It's totally up to you however you want to do it, but I'm working with a slip stitch. And then I'll do one more. This is just to tack down the corner. So now we're going to turn and we're going to put a single crochet in this double crochet chain here. So we'll just put a single crochet stitch and we'll just continue working it all the way across. We're pretty much doing like a post single crochet stitch here across, but it gives a nice finish, just like this one when it lays flat. So just keep working across the top. Do the same thing when you get to the multicolored part. Now we're going to work the other side. So we're going to count and make sure that our pocket is going to be the same on both sides. Then pinch the corner and we'll count up 15. You could use a stitch marker here if you need to, and we'll just go in through the corner edge, and then we're going to go back to doing a slip stitch, not the single crochet. We'll go through the first stitch here, and then the next stitch, and we're just going to continue to work a slip stitch all the way down. Like I said, you could do a single crochet stitch here if you wanted to. That's completely up to you. It's your project, so you can make it your own. I'm going to cut my yarn loose. We will pull that. Then I'm going to finish off. I'm going to put a knot. Grab my darning needle, and I'm just going to work back through some of these stitches. And I'm only putting a needle through the back side, not the front side. And then I'll pull it through. Now, I'm making this for a family member, and so I want this to last her for a long time, and I want it to hold up through washing. So what I'm going to do is tie another knot. And again, you can use glue here if you wanted to, but it just secures that knot so that that knot cannot come out. And I'm just going to melt the ends of the yarn right here very carefully and just kind of tug on it, and then it disappears. And this is just going to ensure that that knot will not come out through multiple washes. We now have our pocket exactly the same as the other side. And so I have two of these pretty sparkly little buttons here. They're just regular buttons on the back. You could use any kind of button that you want to. I just want to make sure that I put it exactly in the same spot as the other side. So if you look, you can just line these pockets up if you want so that you can see exactly where you have your buttons on the other side. I have a smaller sewing needle, and that's what I'm going to use because it actually fits inside of the back of my button. If you have one that has a smaller back than this, you could use a regular sewing needle and some thread. It'd be perfectly fine. But since my needle will fit through the back of my button, this is what I'm going to use. So I'm just going to kind of shimmy that yarn through here. And we want this to go all the way through the other side because we want this to close the pocket so that there won't be a gap. And the way that we do that is to go through some of these stitches here. This is the back side. So it really doesn't matter if you're going to be able to see a little bit of the yarn. If I did have any of the key lime yarn left, I could have used it, but I didn't have any more of it. So I'm not going to mess with it. I'm just going to make a knot, and then I'm going to keep going back through the button until I cannot go through it anymore. And it's getting pretty tight here. So this will be my last time through. And what I'm going to do is take my yarn underneath it and then make a knot. And I'm going to tie it again and then cut that yarn. And I'll use a sewing needle here and I'm going to bring it back through the inside. You can see a little bit of where you sewed, but it's just a very little stitch right here. Not a big deal at all. If you have the same colored yarn, it really doesn't matter. You could use it here. Now you could stop here, but I'm going to go ahead and secure this so that it'll last longer. So I'm going to go ahead, put a few more knots. Again, you could use glue here, but I'm just going to cut these short and then pull them up. And I'm going to melt these ends together. Just watch your fingers and don't catch the rest of your project on fire, please. I'm going to melt them down together. You don't have to do that. This is just an extra step that I'm doing. Now we need to line up the other side and we will do the exact same thing. So now you have two pockets on your shawl and your shawl is now complete. I hope that you have enjoyed this tutorial, and if you did, please give this video a thumbs up and let me know who you're going to make your pocket shawl for. I would also love to know the color combos that you're going to use. If you are looking for something cute to make this Easter, check out my next video. Happy crocheting!